I'm glad to be here. I really am. Jesus manifested. We're going beyond simply believing in Jesus, although if you believe in Jesus, you're at a good point. Good point in life. In fact, if that's all you do till the day you die, guys, you'll make it home. Jesus manifested. And we looked at this a little bit last week. Judas had a question. John 14 is where we'll be going. Starting at verse 15. He asked, how will you manifest yourself to us and not the world? And we're going to hone in on that question this morning. We're moving almost painstakingly slow through John right now, looking at just about every word that comes from the mouth of Jesus. And next week, we've got Jean, who will come up and share her story with us. And if you get today's message, if you understand the thrust of today's message, Jesus and what he's telling Judas, you're going to understand why we're doing what we're doing next week. That Jean's story is the message next week. And so I really want you to get this, and I will do everything that, my ability that the Lord has given me to make this as clear to you as possible. And why we can have a testimony, not just be 5 minutes, but a story of someone's life and how they found Jesus and how Jesus found them. It hopes to tease you to look into him. In fact, we're going backwards in John 4. Remember John 4? Samaritan woman at the well. She shows up at the well, hoping to be by herself. Doesn't really want to talk about her life. And out of all people to be at that well in that moment, the Son of God, her creator. And just he cuts to the chase. Woman, I know you've been sleeping with people, with other men. In fact, you're really thirsty, he says to her. You're really thirsty. And she's kind of taken off guard, and she says, well, when are we going to worship? Where are we going to worship at? And Jesus says, it's no longer in a place, but it's in spirit and in truth. And she says, well, we're waiting for the Messiah. And he says, well, I am the Messiah. And then she goes into town and tells the town all about Jesus and everything he revealed about her. The very thing she didn't want to discuss at the well. And the town comes out and checks out Jesus. I hope you get this today, and I think you will. You kids in here, I'm very proud of you. You guys, you all do a very good job listening. And in fact, today we're going to talk a little bit about haunted houses and maybe even zombies at the end. But you guys, I'm so proud of you all, because this isn't elementary stuff. This is, as Hebrews would put it, we are going beyond the elementary doctrines of the gospel. And we look at it through John 14. We're here at verse 15 through 24, and it's like every 4 or 5 words Jesus says is loaded and could be a message, a sermon in and of itself. Let's read verse 15 through verse 24. And you probably want to go home and read this on your own because of just how full and rich of life these words are. Jesus says to his disciples at this Last Supper, verse 15 of John chapter 14, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. And I will ask the Father, and he will give you another helper to be with you forever, even the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive because it neither sees him or knows him. You know him, for he dwells with you and will be in you. I will not leave you as orphans. I will come to you. Yet a little while and the world will see me no more, but you will see me. Because I live, you also will live. And that day you will know that I am in my Father, and you in me, and I in you. Whoever has my commandments and keeps them, he it is who loves me. And he who loves me will be loved by my Father. And I will love him and manifest myself to him. Judas, not Iscariot, said to him, Lord, how is it that you will manifest yourself to us and not to the world? Jesus answered him, if anyone loves me, he will keep my word, and my Father will love him, and we will come to him and make our home with him. Whoever does not love me does not keep my words. And the word that you hear is not mine, but the Father's who sent me. May they hear your words, Father. May they hear the truth as it comes for me and as you've revealed it to me this week. Father, I just amazing the words that have been recorded through the years and through the generations from the mouth of your Son, Jesus Christ. From Yeshua. And we get to hear them today. We get to look at them. And Father, I know, man, the first step to error is trying to interpret your Son's words, but I know you will protect us through the Spirit of truth, which I ask you to do right now. Last week we looked at this phrase. It comes up 4 times in here. If you love me, you will keep my commandments. I mean, there's so many little ways you can twist that phrase. Now, I think the biggest one is, if you love me, you will obey my commandments. And the word obey is oftentimes just naturally slid in there by our minds, just the way we're conditioned. We see the word commandment, and we naturally react with the word obey. And though obey is a nuance of the word keep is a good interpretation of the Greek word. Which, if you go to John 17, you see it used elsewhere. Jesus says, I kept them in your name, Father. I have not lost one of them. I protected them. I guarded them. I preserved them. Which we looked at last week. If you love me, you will preserve, you will keep my commandments. And it's not I don't see it as a conditional phrase. As if you do these things, then you prove your love to me. But rather like a cause and effect. If you love me, you will be doing these things. You will be keeping these things. You will be protecting my word. He says it 4 times. In fact, he says it one time to Judas, when Judas has the question, how will you manifest yourself to us? But don't take my word for it if you don't want to. My sunglasses. This would have helped when I got the metal in my eye this week. They actually drilled into my eye. Stop twitching your eye. You've got a drill coming in my eye. Okay, so either way, those are what my sunglasses are. Don't let me forget them. Try it for yourself. Go home. If you're married, I tried this week, and I tried to show my love through obedience. Simply obey my wife. And I realized that's not a good idea. So I swapped it around. I told my wife, you will obey me if you love me. That didn't work either. We don't have a marriage crisis team here. We do actually every Sunday morning at 10:30. But if you want your marriage to fall apart, just go show your love through obedience. In fact, here's what will happen. My guess is what will happen. You will show loyalty and commitment to your spouse without instilling value and love and cherishment, I'm going with it, into their hearts. They will not feel loved, although they will feel like you are loyal to them. It just won't work. In fact, the marriage, you will quickly be devalued of self-worth as you give everything. If I was to come over to your house and this is the way your marriage operated, I'd probably feel like I walked into the military. Pass the salt. Yes, sir. I mean, a marriage doesn't really operate well in that sense. But try it for yourself if you want to. Tell me how it works. I'm not a good marriage counselor, so don't come to me for help either. Because I do these social experiments in my own family. But here we are. Jesus says, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. And just a small misinterpretation of this passage will send you in a direction of doubt, fear, self-trust, and a place that though you may know the Lord and be a child of God, you will wander and be, as James says, the waves of the sea, tossed to and fro. Judas has this question. Let me read it to you. Well, Jesus says, verse 18, I will not leave you as orphans. I will come to you. Yet a little while and the world will see me no more, but you will see me. Because I live, you also will live. Jesus tells his disciples at this farewell speech, right? I mean, this is the Last Supper speech. These are the last words recorded in John before he heads to the cross. He's pouring out his heart. He goes, I'm not going to leave you. I'm not going to leave you as orphans, fatherless. I'm not going to leave you helpless. I'm not going to leave you just wandering, fighting life by yourself. And he says, in a little while, yet a little while, and the world will see me no more, but you will see me. Now, a careful reader won't read this. He'll rise from the dead and he'll be back. And you'll get to see me. I don't think that's what he's saying. Because then again, the disciples will go through all the emotions of losing him again. I believe what he's saying is much deeper and much richer than just give me 3 days and I'll be right back here next to you. He's saying something so much more. He says, because I live, you live. Because I live, you live. See, I know you know this. I know that even the children in this room know this. Jesus lives in my heart. Anna tells me that all the time. He's in my heart. In my heart, Daddy. You're absolutely right. But still, there's a part of you that may believe he's here, but not really here. He lives here because I believe in him and I wrap my belief system around him, but he's not really here. I believe he's in my heart, but there's still a disconnect of even knowing what you're saying right there. That the heart being the central organ of your body, that he is the life within you. He says, guys, he says, disciples, because I live, you will live. And that day you will know that I am in my Father, and you in me, which you can draw the connection. Therefore, that you are in the Father. If you are in Jesus and Jesus is in the Father, Jesus is saying, you are also found in the Father. But he's drawing a distinction. The world is not. The world is not, but you are. And then he says it again, whoever has my commandments and keeps them, he it is who loves me. He keeps throwing this back and forth. If you have my commandments and you keep them, you love me. As if this all hinges on you. But it's not the case. This isn't you got to do these things and you prove your love and then we will love you and return the love to you. He's simply saying, if you have my commandments, you keep and guard them, protect them, you will love me. Protecting the word of God here, I will stay focused, my mind will stay conditioned on the Father, on Jesus. And he who loves me will be loved by my Father, and I will love him and make myself known, manifest, reveal myself to him. And Jesus asks a great question. Lord, how is it that you will manifest yourself to us and not to the world? How is it that you will manifest yourself to us and not to the world? How is it that we will see you, know you, you will be revealed to us, but yet there will be someone standing right next to me who doesn't love you and they won't know you? Let me put it to you in maybe different words, more that might make sense a little bit more. How can two people hear the same gospel message and one turn in love and trust and believe and one go back to their daily living? That's what Jesus is asking. How can we know you, see you, you be revealed to us, and yet the world will never recognize you? If you know me, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. Let me go back. Last week, Deuteronomy 5, the first commandment and the last commandment. Very critical here. Very critical that you have a compartment within your mind, your heart, is how to handle the 10 commandments and those like it. And also how you handle the ceremonial law. The first commandment, you shall have no other gods before me. What is the last commandment? You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, spouse, house, field, maidservant, male servant, donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. It is almost exactly like the first commandment. You shall have nothing before your neighbor. In fact, there's one thing left out of that list: the neighbor himself. As if you can covet your neighbor. As if the passion and the love in your heart should be only geared towards one thing: God and the neighbor. I guess that's two. Which we'll see as one. God and the neighbor. If you put something before your neighbor, you've now found what it means to have a false God. If you value something over your neighbor, you have now found what it means to break the first commandment in our new covenant, in our New Testament way of thinking, in the Gospels it's portrayed. You have placed something before God. You see, John 13:34, a new commandment I give to you, to love one another, even as I have loved you. How is that a new commandment? Well, I don't have time to break all this down, but the Old Covenant and the New Covenant, God was found in the Old Covenant in a tabernacle and a temple. He was found amongst the Israelites in brick and stone buildings. In the New Covenant, Jesus says, John 14, I go to prepare a place for you. And now he says this, we will come and make our home with you. That God is no longer found in building, but he's found in hearts. To love God is to love your neighbor. To place something before your neighbor, to covet something other than your neighbor, is now to break the first commandment. You're going to have to go home and challenge my words. And I give you all permission to do that. Go deep. Take every word of mine and test them against the scriptures to see if what I'm saying is true. This isn't just John 14 stuff. We'll encounter this in Paul and his writings. You are the temple of God. That the lawyer who stands up and says, well, what is the greatest commandment? Well, to love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. But the second is just like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. You see, we go back to Judas's question. What was Judas's question? How will you manifest yourself to us and not to the world? And this is where we go beyond just believing in Jesus, although that is the simplicity of the gospel, to realizing who you are today. Because what is his answer? A lot of commentaries I read thought he just dodged the answer. But the answer is black and white, or red and white, depending on what kind of Bible you have. He says this, Jesus answered him. This is the answer to the question, how will you manifest yourself to us and not the world? He's already said it. He said this. He says it again. If anyone loves me, he will keep my word. He will guard my word. He will protect my word. Therefore, the words that I say will resonate with them because they are being guarded and protected. So when I speak, he will hear. The words of life will make sense to him. If you love me, you will keep my word. And my Father will love him. And we will come to him and make our home with him. But now he answers Judas's other question. Well, how will the world not see you? Whoever does not love me does not keep my words. They make no sense to him. There's no compartment within those of the world that can interpret, make sense, find life in Jesus' words because they do not know the love of God or love God themselves. And that's it, period. That's it. Just if you don't love me, then you don't keep my words. And that explains how they don't know him. But for you, this morning, if you love him, then you guard his words. And don't just run over this. And just move on to the next chapter. He has made his home with you. Jesus has made his home in you. John 14:2, the word home. There's only one other place in the New Testament in which it's found. Jesus tells his disciples, same chapter, just a few verses earlier, I go and prepare a place for you. In my Father's house are many, you might have got mansions, rooms. The word is home. It is the same Greek word. In my Father's house are many homes, are many rooms. You are the home. And he says, if it was not so, would I have not told you, I'd go and prepare a place for you. He went and prepared you and for him. This is so much greater than that is often taught in our churches. God, Jesus Christ, is alive in you right now. But it's so easy to feel so distant from him. Like he's not really there, but he's not there. I should trust him, and I should go sit in my bedroom and lock the door and work on my trust and my love for Jesus. How do you love Jesus? I mean, come on, let's be real quick. You don't see him. I mean, in the Old Testament, you loved God, His glory, the cloud filled the tabernacle. I mean, you could say, there's God, His glory is right there. We should go and do exactly what He says and fulfill these laws and the ceremonial laws, the washings and the being clean. I mean, my love for God, because He's in my presence, is evident. But how do you love someone you don't see? I mean, let's just really ask this. Do you go and sit by yourself and muster up the love? I can do this. I don't know. I mean, I don't see Him. I've always thought maybe if I give my mind to Him, I'm loving Him. It's been so evident this week as I studied this. To love Him is to love you. Period. He's found in you. And if I don't love you, am I loving Him? That's another message in our sermon. But guys, it's not even a question, should I love you or not? This is my natural response. You are my church family, my faith family, call it what you want. We are in the same body. We are united because the same Spirit that lives in me lives in those of you who love Jesus. To place anything before you, anything, is to have a false God. I'm called to love you. I don't muster that up because you're God to me. You're Jesus to me. This isn't worship for you. This is worship because of who is in you. There's value in you. There's so much self-worth because of the self that you are. How will you manifest yourself to us? Judas, I will be right, I'm in you. I will be, every part of you is me and is you. And it's just, I understand how easy it is to forget this, especially if you've never been taught it. Well, but I know you've been taught He lives in your heart. But this should come to life for you and for your kids. This gives you the meat on the bones of why we love one another, why there is a new commandment. It's just like the old one. How much better? Because that means you get to love you too. I mean, how cool is that? I mean, this isn't just working on not bickering in the church. This is that doesn't even enter the conversation. I love you. Not because of what you give me, not because of the value you instill in me, but because of the love found within me. I value you, period. I cherish you, period. And nothing you have should ever come in the way. But we struggle. We do. We really do. Especially if you got a friend who has a lot of money, and you know how hard it is as a child of God to love that person purely and wholly. And I encourage you, you just continue loving them the best you know how. How will you manifest yourself to us? Well, Judas. If anyone loves me, he will keep my word. My Father will love him. And we will come to him. We will come to him and make our home with him. Well, he had to get to the cross. He had to prepare you. And so those future tenses are now swapped out with present tense. He is here. He is here. We put this to you in a different perspective. How did God reveal himself in the Old Testament? I think of Gideon. An angel came to Gideon, and Gideon, you got to lead him, man. You got to lead him to war. I need a sign. Make my jacket wet and the ground dry. All right. Flip it around. All right. So God showed up to Gideon through an angel and through signs. Adam, he walked in the garden with him. Enoch, it sounds like they walked together. David had prophets like Nathaniel himself prophesied. The biggest way was the glory of God leading the Israelites by fire at night and a cloud during the day. When they got to the resting place, the cloud ascended over the tabernacle and over the temple, the most holy place. You knew where God was. There's the cloud. That's God. Easy enough. You flip the pages through the Old Testament and go into the New Testament. You ask the same question. How does he manifest himself to people? Well, the answer remains close to the same as the Old Testament for the first couple chapters of the Gospels. Mary, there's an angel that shows up. Joseph, an angel shows up. The shepherds, I guess thousands of angels show up. Zechariah, an angel shows up, and then he's muted, and God seems to still reveal himself through these angels and messengers and divine beings. And then John the Baptist, a prophet, prepares the way, and then Jesus shows up, and God reveals himself 2 more times by saying, there's my son, I'm proud of him, in the baptism, and I believe the transfiguration. And then Jesus ascends into heaven, and it goes quiet. It goes quiet. No. There's one more time in the New Testament that's recorded. I mean, there's the guy who was caught up in the third heaven. Not sure what that's about. The near-death experience or something. I don't know. There's one more time, and this is critical. This is critical. You need to catch this story like you've never seen it before to understand the importance of the Old Testament. Saul, Acts 9. Acts 9 verse 1 starts off with he's breathing murderous thoughts towards those who belong to the way, Christianity. Those who say, I belong to Jesus Christ, he wants to kill them. He goes to the church, the priest, and gets permission to drag them to Jerusalem and put them in prison, and you can assume to stone them. And he gets permission. How corrupt was the church back then? He gets permission, he's breathing murderous thoughts, and he's on his way to Damascus. So I'm trying to put myself in Saul's shoes to understand what's going on. He was a Pharisee, and one of the top Pharisees. He had to have been present at the crucifixion. I cannot see him not being active in that. For some reason it seems like he's just not brought up in that manner in the Gospels until Acts 9 and Jesus is ascended. But either way, he's on his way to Damascus, and he's got to be just flooded with hatred and bitterness. Just these people, they follow that guy Jesus, and just they have no clue what they're doing. They're all leading the Israelites astray. Babylonian will take us over again. We'll fall again. We've got to put a stop to this. I've got to stop this. And his zeal for God consumed him. But it didn't provoke love. It provoked hatred. And the very fruit of the hate proved he was wrong. But in his bitterness, his hatred, he's off to take the way the Christians by storm. Every single one, he got permission. Every single one he passed up or he met, he could drag him off in chains to Jerusalem. Every single one. And there he is. He's in a moment of fury. This is my imagination how this went down, given the Acts 9 details. He's in a moment of fury. He's like, I'm a Pharisee. I know the God Almighty. They're following this guy, and he thinks he's God. And all of a sudden, a light. Saul! And he falls down. And he's blinded because the glory of God, God didn't just crank up the sun a little bit. God's very glory, as Moses saw it on Mount Sinai and had his back to him, the back of God to him, his eyes covered. But Saul was unhindered. Blinded him. What happened? Scales. His eyes literally burnt shut. And he falls to the ground. And it's a technique. Try this. I mean, not like with a flashlight or something. If someone is in the middle of spewing hatred, you've got to stop their thinking. They will not hear the truth until the thinking is shut off. And Jesus throws a wrench into his mind. And he makes him blind. The affliction of God is what drew him to the love of God. And oftentimes, our afflictions are the very things that puts the wrench in the mind to shut off the valve of hatred and bitterness. And God throws that wrench and he falls to the ground and he says, you read it for yourself, Acts 9 verse 4. He says, who are you, Lord? He realizes that whatever just happened has authority over him. And the next words of Jesus, you cannot miss this. Everything you have, simply because you're sitting here. And this is now knowledge filling your mind. You don't miss this. Jesus said to him, I am Jesus. Ego eimi Yeshua. In his Old Testament way of thinking, he would have heard this. I am who I am. Yahweh saves. The Lord God Almighty, Yahweh Elohim spoke to Paul, to Saul in that moment. It says, the God you think you're defending, you're killing, you're persecuting. Jesus, who you saw on that cross, I am the great I am. I am the Lord God Almighty. I am Jesus. Yeshua, Yahweh saves. Those are the words he heard. And then Jesus didn't stop there. Who you are persecuting. And there's not an ounce of manipulation inside of Jesus. There's not an ounce of deceit. He breathes and lives truth because he is truth. But Paul's going to persecute those who belong to the way. And Jesus says, you persecute them, you persecute me. You kill them, you kill me. Flip it around. You bless them, you bless me. You love them, you love me. But Saul had to learn. The very God you think you're protecting is the God you're persecuting. You persecute them, you persecute me. What does that tell you about yourself? What does that tell you about our brothers and sisters over in the Middle East who are being persecuted? That God pains with them. That God himself, Jesus himself, is persecuted right with them. They're not some, well, that stinks that they're going through that, separated from us. We hurt with them. Their persecution is our persecution because the same God in them is the same God in us. And he's alive within us. He's made his home with you, in you. Jesus, the Lord God Almighty, is alive in you. And for those of you who struggle with doubt, you wonder, this really sounds good. I mean, it's like starting to build a little fire inside me. I mean, I'm loving this. But I'm going to go home and I'm going to just wonder, is this for real? Like you said, you test every word I said this morning. Through the Bible. Don't you dare Google it. Because I'm not responding to Google requests or bid requests. Exactly. But you're going to go home and you may, most of you won't, because I know the work God's doing, but you may. I get this, but why this affliction? Why this pain? Why this suffering? Why these financial issues? Why this? Why that? You know what? But what follows doubt almost every time is fear or anxiety. Because of this, because what is attached to fear and anxiety is misplaced trust. And I got a feeling if you struggle with, is he really that involved with me? Then there are times where you just take trust over yourself. And the problem is, the boss who told you 4 out of 7 you are going, you have no control over. The doctor who told you, yeah, those cells don't look normal, you have no control over. If you can come to the grips that you have no control over the next minute of your life, then you can see the purpose to trust me, Lord God Almighty, who's in you, who lives with you. His home is right here. Look, man, this is me, just Friday. In fact, if you stay in John long enough, you actually start walking yourself through your own fear and lack of doubt, and you walk yourself right out of it. Because Friday started, and there's some news of someone who passed away, which was a good friend, and you struggle with that. And we're selling the parsonage here, and we've already the asking price is a lot lower than we hoped. It doesn't affect the church. God has blessed us in the church. But, we work with that, and then it needs a new roof or major roof repairs. And, I've got this business on the side that's growing and has growing pains. And Friday, it just all comes together at once. And you know what I'm talking about. It all hits the fan at once. And I find myself becoming angry, frustrated, and slightly fearful about the events. Will the house sell? Will we be able to afford the roof payment? This, that, and other. And I realize, because I've been in John so long, you've been in John so long, you could probably preach this to me. I realized I was wanting to take control over things I had no control over. Because I shot the realtor 2 emails that day. I'm like, you better get a roofer out here. Problem is, we found a roofer, signed a contract with them, and Sure enough, I'm sure this guy is a good guy, but the last thing I want to hear is, I'll get it done right before closing. We have to still get it re-inspected and the appraiser come out. Well, no, that's not what I want to hear. When I sign a contract, I want to hear the date you're going to be out here. Not, well, just tell me when closing is, we'll squeeze you in. And I just feel myself losing the ability to control the peace within me. And, but I knew the gospel. And I said, God, I'm losing control here. I need to trust you. And to trust you, I need to trust those you've placed around me. Forget if they're Christians or not. I have to trust that you have put in my life the tools I need to walk through this and for the peace to come back. So I called my realtor up, great guy, awesome guy. And I was honest with him. I said, look, I have lost the ability to make some decisions right now. I want to fire this roofer because he said the things I didn't want to say, but I can't do that. I have to follow your lead. You know where I'm at. You tell me what to do and I'll do it. Fire him, we'll fire him. If you want to just wait this out, wait it out. He says, look, Greg. He says, I understand. You're a busy guy. You always stay busy. I'm going to take care of this for you. You don't need to worry. And I hung up the phone and I said, God, I said, this is, you gave me the resources. And then I went back inside and me, Beck, and Anna had a tickle fight. Now look. You can't be mad and have a tickle fight. It just doesn't happen. You can't have a tickle fight if you're mad. It turns into a wrestling match. But I tell you, I had a tickle fight because the peace of God flowed in my heart again. And my wife will vouch for this. I just, the ability to walk myself out of the fear and anxiety because I could recognize where I was trusting myself and reoriented trust to God, who's found in those around me. I'll put it to you one more way. Wrap it up. You boys, you men in here, you know what I'm talking about. Maybe you women. But we all have that haunted house on our street growing up. You know the house that you know someone lives there, but you've never seen them. You know there's life in there, but you've just never seen the person in there. I mean, the trees are unkept. We got a picture of, something like this. The house is always great. Right? There's always, the windows are either broken out or the screen door's perched on one hinge and it's ripped and the trees are overgrown, but the grass somehow stays cut. A light will come on at night on the front door and go off in the morning. And, every once in a while through the dark curtains, you can see the glow of a TV. So you know there's life there. You know there's life. And growing up, I had this house. We were on Woodlawn. I can't remember the guy's name, Steve, but he was the haunted house. And you didn't go into his yard unless you were dared to go in his yard. And if a ball went in his yard, boy, forget it, man. It's over. He didn't even have a fence or a dog. But the very mystery of the haunted house kept us at bay. After a while, guys, your imagination takes over. Who's in this house? CIA operative. He can't come out. I mean, of course he can. This makes sense. He can't. If he comes out of the house, we will know who he is. And he'll be blown. His cover will be blown. And then you get with your boys in the clubhouse. You're like, that's not right. He's got to be zombies. Because only zombies come out at night. I told you zombies are coming. Zombies come out at night. Your imagination just runs wild. It's got to be zombies. And then the next go around of your imagination trying to think about this, you're like, he's a mailman. All mailmen are just mysterious. I don't know why. Maybe it's because you see their head and their shoulders or right arm, and that's it. 3 seconds every day. That's all you see. You get imagination takes over from there. You think he's a mailman. He's got to be a mailman, but we still don't. We don't go in his yard. And if you're really daring, you'll go and you'll peek at the windows real quick and run away. I think a lot of people treat Christians like this. They treat people like you and me. I think that happens in the church all the time. You're weird. Look at how they're dressed. They do what? They say what? There's no way there's life inside that house. All I got to do is knock on the door. I bet you there's just a sweet old lady in there. It's just lonely as anything. Sweet for someone to say hi. Who doesn't give a rip about her front yard or the paint on her house. I bet you 90% of those haunted homes, there's a nice old man or old lady in there that just watching TV, watching the Fox News. That TV is what you watch, right? That's it. And this is why we're going to listen to Gene's story next week. Not because you're a haunted house, but maybe she scares some of you. I mean, let's just be honest. Maybe there's a little bit of element of mystery, and your imagination is running wild. There's no way there's life in that thing. I kid because I can. But we're going to get to hear about the life as it's in her. You know what it's going to do for us too? We're going to get to know how to love her more. And we're going to get to know our family a little bit better. Don't doubt this. God's alive in you. Jesus Christ, the Savior of the world, the Creator of the world, has made his home within you. And I know it because you love me. And you love others. Because you fight to have no idols. You fight to put nothing before us. And now sometimes it doesn't always work out. I know it because I hear it. You fight for it. Because you're keeping and you're preserving that commandment, that word, because of what's inside your heart.